Hello and welcome to everybody coming from all around the world joining us, and a huge thank you to our panelists who, obviously this event couldn't happen without you, so thank you so much for that. So my name is Brea. I am the SBR or student board rep from Ivy. I'm originally from Canada, and I'll just be kind of moderating the panel. I won't be talking too much. I'm hoping that the hosts, the participants and panelists are going to give us a whole bunch of really fun information. So we're going to start with a quick poll with a few questions that about our panelists, and to kind of get you guys excited about who are going to be talking. So just Daniel will be showing the questions now, and then once we do that, we'll get into some introductions and get started right away.
Indeed, thank you everyone for joining. I'm Daniel, I'm the student board representative for Chile. In the meantime, we are really thank you with Mustasim, Greta, Luis, and Christina for joining us from the entire continent of the Americas. They have been CEMSs, and they have changed their career paths, and they ended up working in the Americas. We're very interesting to hear from them today and see what are their insights and tips, how they did it. Good. Let's see how much you think you know our panelists. Also for you guys, panelists, we took the liberty to deep dive in your Facebook accounts and Instagram accounts and LinkedIn profiles to gather some cool cool information about your life so far, and do this a little bit more interactive beginning of our panel.
Yeah, so I mean, technically we did get, well, most people got it right, because I suppose there are two right answers to this one. Christina, you were born in Canada as well, correct? Yeah, so we've got Luis and Christina born in the Americas. So congratulations to most people who did get that one right.
No, but wait, Luis, were you born in the Americas?
No, I actually was born in Spain. I'm from Spain originally.
Spain, it is in Valencia, right?
Okay. From Valencia, correct.
There you go. So, guys, you almost get it right. It was actually Christina.
There we go. Cool.
Great. Go with the next, with the second one. We have Mustasim. Did you, Mustasim, won the CEMS Startup Challenge?
Oh yeah, it's been 3 years now, and it's like a vague memory, but a really nice memory of that. So yeah, appreciate everyone reading the information material, and happy to help. Or I know the Startup Challenge is coming up in a few days, right? So if there's anything with regards to that as well, do feel free to reach out.
It is, right. So, Brea, what's our next question?
Of our CEMSs that were not born in the Americas, who worked there before their CEMS degree?
So apparently someone actually worked in the Americas even before starting CEMS. Let's see. And we have Greta with the majority. Greta, did you work in the Americas before starting CEMS?
I actually did. I worked for the German-Chilean Chamber of Commerce before starting CEMS. I did a gap year between bachelor's and master's, and already back then wanted to come to Chile and spend, I think, 7 months here.
There you go, great. And we had also 40%, I know you cannot see the results, but so that we can go a little bit quicker. 40% of the people voted for Luis, so it was right there. Luis, did you work in the Americas before joining CEMS?
Yes,
there you go.
the attendees are correct. I studied for 2 years in the United States and worked for a year in a hotel. It was a great experience in the tourism sector.
Great, thank you. And obviously, Christina, you worked in the Americas, right? Because you were born there. Great.
I did, yeah.
Let's move with the next question. Brea, what's our next question?
Our next question is, who of our CEMSs is the only person whose CEMS home school is in the Americas?
This was also, I think, one of the promotion materials. Let's see who paid attention. Who do you think it is, Brea? If you have to guess. but without
I
spoiling.
have to guess. I might have to go ahead and say Christina. We may have gone to the same school, maybe.
And it is, Christina. It is indeed. Indeed. Christina, you're Ivy student, right?
I was, yeah, and I was also the student board rep while I was there. So
There
happy
you
to be around other student board reps now. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Let's go with the last question. Who of our CEMSs joined their current company through an office outside of the Americas? Which means who joined their current office, their current company, not in the Americas? Dun, dun, dun. This was actually in one of the videos. So let's see who also paid attention on the videos. And the results. Mostasim. Ooh, is it right, Mostasim? Did you join Gardner in Europe or in some other continent before working in New York?
No, unfortunately, I'll have to disappoint 10 people here. But no, I just joined it from the US office directly.
So let's see, Greta, did you?
No, I applied straight to Bain Chile. Never worked for Bain Germany. Even my colleagues sometimes don't know that, but that's the thing.
We will deep into that question later today. Luis, was it you?
Yes, that is
Yes.
correct. I started in Dublin, in Ireland, for 2 years until I got a bit sick of the rain and then decided to move to South America.
There you go. Thank you everyone for participating. We will leave it up to here. You have grasped a little bit of our panelists. Now all yours, Brea.
Yeah, so that was nice and fun. So I think we're going to do just very, very simple introductions, and I'll assign which panelist will just give a very short briefing of who they are, what they've done, a little bit about themselves, and then we'll go straight into some questions. So Christina, could you please kick us off?
Sure, happy to, and thanks again for having me. So hi everyone, I'm Christina. I lead the blockchain team at a large international organization within the UN. My day-to-day consists of supporting a venture fund, which makes early stage investments into startups working on emerging technologies, and also building internal prototypes around blockchain and cryptocurrency with various offices around the world. So our organization has over 190 offices around the world. They might not have blockchain experts, but my team supports those 190 offices and building internal prototypes around the world. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I've heard about your career before. We've chatted before, and it still blows my mind. It's such a cool job. All right, Greta.
Perfect. So from my side, I'm originally born in Germany, did my bachelor's also in Germany at Mannheim University. Then I did this gap year I talked about, worked half a year in Chile, half a year in Germany for Henkel, I think also a CEMS partner, if I'm not wrong. And after this, I studied CEMS in Austria as a homeschool in Vienna, and then the exchange in Tokyo, Japan. And after CEMS, I did another CEMS internship and then basically joined Bain & Company in Chile. I work at Bain since 2.5 years now as a generalist consultant. I've been doing projects in mining strategy, which is not uncommon for Chile. Then I've done quite a bit of financial services, mainly insurance. And the first half of 2020, I worked in private equity for the Brazil office, where Bain has like a private equity group fully focused on this. And now since almost 3 months, I'm back in strategy here in Santiago.
There's something about CEMSs that's just blows my mind every time. All right, Luis, could you give us a little bit of information about you?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone connected from all over the world. I'm Luis Montesa. I work at Google in Colombia. I've been here for the past 2.5 years, and I did my CEMS in Prague and in Vienna. And through one of the career forums, actually from CEMS, I got to know like people from Google. And I joined the internship at Dublin, actually, and some promotion here. Now the internship program is again open for the next year. So if you're interested, I think it's a super nice experience. So I joined Google in Dublin, and then after 2.5 years, like inside the company, it was they are promoting like moving to different countries, and they were expanding in Latin America. And that was something that I really wanted to do for a while. I studied in the US, so I really wanted to do the Latin America part of Americas. So I decided to come to Colombia. I'm currently the partner lead for Google, basically like doing all the partnerships in 15 countries, which is a lot. If we compare this to the European like scope. So one of the learnings as well is like in Latin America, you usually do quite a lot of work and you get a lot of experience. Probably Greta also agrees here, compared to maybe like more developed countries. So that's something super interesting that I've been enjoying a lot. And let's see what is next.
Right, last but most definitely not least, Montesa.
Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in. As Bria mentioned, name is Montesa. I currently reside in the New York City. Apart from that, I'm currently working at Gartner at the global head office into designing their global business retention and growth strategies. So I primarily focus on the Americas East and the Europe, Middle East, North African regions. I work closely with Fortune 500 companies into resolving challenges, specifically with the COVID-related economic challenges we're facing. That has made the job far more interesting, I'll have to say. Before that, I completed my business school at the Yale School of Management, which was after I completed my CEMS degree in Turkey. Throughout the time, I've had an opportunity of working on short-term consulting engagements with companies like Siemens, ThyssenKrupp, GE Capital, or Synchrony Financial. And hey, in 2017, it was a startup challenge. So looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Amazing, thank you. Alrighty, so I guess we're gonna dive right into some questions. So I think one of the biggest ones, and I know you've kind of tapped into them a little bit already, but it's a bit around how did you get this current position that you're in, and what are the main challenges that you ran into, both logistically, say with visas and moving, and also just with cultural challenges. So I think I might start with Greta first, if you could tackle this question, if you want to.
Sure. So first of all, how did I apply? Basically, in my case, I knew I wanted to go to Chile, and I knew I wanted to have an international company in case at some point I want to move somewhere else in the world. And that's usually easier if you have like a bigger global company that hopefully has some kind of name in the world. And that's why I mainly applied to MBB Consulting. And as soon as I got the offer from Bain, for me, it was clear I joined this company. For me, because of personal reasons, I had always a really good relationship to Bain and really loved the culture. So that decision was easy once I got in, let's say. And how did I get in? I basically did contact the HR people, which I found on the website, and just wrote an email in Spanish saying that I'm interested and that I would love to live and work in Chile. And at that point, the Bain office was super open to have foreigners. And I would say in general, Bain is always very much open to receive lots of foreigners. Of course, in Chile, it's good to have some level of Spanish. The rest can be learned here, but it's good to be able to have maybe an interview in Spanish at least. Not perfect, but a B2 is helpful. And for me, I did all the first 4 interviews actually from Vienna campus, from the school, via Skype. And the last 2, I flew to Paris because Bain was recruiting at INSEAD. So I was able to do the last 2 interviews in person, which was great because it gave me a chance to know someone and also the company to get to know me in live and not just over the screen. And then visa-wise, if you have a global company, they are more than happy to help you with the visa. So that's usually not a problem. And maybe last but not least, what was a bit weird or new to me in terms of culture, I think it was definitely that lots of business communication is via WhatsApp. For me, WhatsApp was like my personal channel. And since I joined a LATAM country or company, I've been using WhatsApp a lot with clients, which was really new to me. But by now, I kind of came over it.
Cheers. Thank you. Hopefully, and I'm sure that that information is actually extremely helpful to many people, and I'm sure that a lot of Europeans mainly can relate to it. So I think for the same question, Mustasio, if you wouldn't mind tackling that, would you like me to repeat the question, or are you set and ready?
I'm set and ready. Thank you, Brett. So as far as the job hunt was concerned, it was based on networking. And that is something that CEMS brings in, right? So although I completed my business school from the US, I found a vacancy at Gartner in the US office, but I reached out to my network from one of my close CEMS friends who was from the Netherlands. So he had already started working in the London office. So I asked for a referral, and that is how I went through the initial screening stage. And after that, there were like multiple interviews that I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get through. Apart from that, the next questions were relating to the cultural challenges. I won't say there were a lot of cultural challenges in the United States. The only thing I do think a little bit differs from Europe would be the work-life balance or the expectation to work extra hours. And that is something I did not feel in Europe. So like after 5 or on the weekends, it is frowned upon to send out emails relating to work. Here it's quite a norm. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, if you value your personal life more, it would be a bad thing, but that is how I've seen people hustling in the New York City.
And actually, I was gonna say, Christina, you had the experience to work a little bit in New York as well, right? So now you're back in Ottawa. But can you give us a little bit of experience or of information on your experience, even going from Canada to the States? I think many people still think it's quite similar, which it is in some ways. And even if you could explain a little bit about your international experiences and how all those helped you with your current job, which is quite international, if I get it right.
Yeah, sure. And I think you hit it spot on that I have moved around a little bit. So through CEMS, I did my semester abroad in Chile, actually, and I did my work experience in India. When I came back from all of that, I joined Deloitte Consulting for about 2.5 years. And I had specialized in blockchain actually through my master's, strangely enough. Having worked at a central bank and there was a professor who was looking at it, I decided to do some research for about a year on that, and then wrote my master's thesis on how banks were responding to blockchain and cryptocurrency. So when I joined Deloitte in Canada, they didn't actually have a blockchain practice for public sector, so particularly working with government. And so I helped get that set up here in Ottawa. The way that I got the job at the UN and at UNICEF specifically was by luck. I just happened to be on LinkedIn and saw the job and applied for it 4 hours before the poster closed. I was not looking for another job. I just happened to stumble on it and say, hey, this looks super international, a really impactful organization. Let's see how this goes. And little did I know that almost a month later, I would be packing up my entire life and moving to New York City for 2 years. So that was really quick and unexpected, but a really nice surprise. In terms of challenges that I would face, mine are, I think, mostly logistical and probably what some people are alluding to in the questions around difficulty getting visas and things like that. I didn't have difficulty because the UN can provide those visas, but I have a partner and a husband, and it was difficult, the transition. First, me needing to leave within 30 days and us both having lives here. But then to get him set up with a work permit in the US, that was a really long and complicated process. And that obviously affects me as much as it affects him as well. So that was a big transition point, definitely moving cross country.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that's going to be very relevant information for many people, including myself. So thank you. So I'm just going off the questions in the chat here and from the participants. So do you find it easy to or do you find that it's easy for companies to accept your transfer to another continent? So I think Luis, what makes more sense for you and maybe a little bit Greta as well, just to tackle that question. And what was your experience with the transfer? How did that go about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, that's a very good point. First of all, like how to get into one of the international companies. I really agree with Mustasim. Like take care of the network of CEMS. That CEMS provides a lot of network, career forums, and talk to the people. Not only wait, for example, if you do like an interview, not only wait for that interview, but try to find the people and talk to them. Or you invite a coffee and get to know them. That's the case for me. Like I actually started to talk to one of the Googlers that came to a career forum, and then he helped me out to get the internship at Google, and that's how I got in. And then the internal transfer is actually not a difficult process, but the difficult process is to get the role. Like to get the role is actually quite complex because there's a lot of people applying, not only locally, like the external people, but also like from other parts, they want to go there. So I'll say that it's super important if you want to do that, like start in Europe or in any other continent and move to another continent, like specialize in something and try to network internally. So in my case, I was specializing in e-commerce, and at the same time, I was doing a lot of events with Latin America from Dublin, right? So when the opportunity came, it was actually quite easier because I had some people that were saying like, hey, this guy, like he helped us out. So we wanted to bring him to the team here in Latin America. So that was the case for me. In terms of visa, like the same as Greta, like it's not difficult because like the company does everything. You just have to provide all like the diplomas and all the information. And also like the culture thing, I agree a lot, and I see identified with Greta. Like WhatsApp is my key communication tool. Even Instagram, sometimes like from events, like people contact you through Instagram. It's like, what's going on? But you get used to it. You get used to it. So it's a super nice experience.
I'm noticing a few of the panelists nodding and smiling a little bit. If you guys want to add to it, please feel free to. If not, that's perfectly fine too. So I'm noticing that a lot of conversations, a lot of the questions are around networking. And I think that a lot of times we're wondering questions on, is there any cultural element to this networking that you wouldn't necessarily notice from, say, a European country? Or is there something about a country, and maybe specifically Latin America, that we, like a sort of networking style that we wouldn't expect, or that you notice was alternative? Can you expand a little bit on that? I think whomever really.
So maybe, for example, Chile compared to Germany, I'd say is more about really relationship networking. So if you look at the country, I think here are 2, 3, maybe 4 major universities where usually companies recruit from. I'm like very much pushing for opening up to more universities, because I think it's also about diversity to have people from many different schools and many different cities, right? Not just Santiago. And Germany, I'd say, is like in a sense more diverse, also probably because it's a more decentralized country, right? Usually, I know that Bain Germany recruits from many more schools, at least 6, 7, 8, if not even 10. So that's for me a difference, that here you have very, very strong network effects. And if you are in the network, it's substantially easier to get a first contact. That's especially why I would say if you want to go to Chile, if you apply to an international company, chances are better because they are super open to foreigners. You don't need a network. You don't need this specific university on your CV in order to get in. While sometimes at some more local companies, they do ask you for your college or your university, and you can just answer like a foreign name they don't know. So that might be a bit tough at times.
And Brea, if I may add on the networking piece a little. So, I mean, especially with the COVID budget cuts that the companies are facing, what I've seen is that in a lot of companies, they're not even reviewing applications which have not been internally referred. So I'm sure like many of the attendees attending this session really need to know about what kind of jobs they can apply for and how to do it. So like that places further emphasis on networking. Now, how to network, especially in the virtual environment? So the easiest way that I've found is that, and it was a huge barrier for me to cross as well, like writing notes to random strangers and not getting responses from them. But like certainly LinkedIn is a really good tool. So you can simply do a search on the specific location that you're wanting to work into and the specific companies you're wanting to work into, and you'll find a list of people. You can start sending them connection requests. I mean, they won't mind seeing a connection request for someone who has a CEMS master's, to be honest. You have a strong profile, be confident. And you can also add a small note on that, hey, I just came through your profile. I'm interested in the company, in the region. If you would be open to, I don't know, a 15-minute chat next weekend. So the hit rate might be low. So out of the 10 people that you write to, maybe 4 are going to respond and you're going to land 1 call. But still, it is not nothing. So it's better than 0. So you're not losing anything. So instead of, I do find a lot of people doing is that they go to the company portals, they apply through there, they like fill in the long applications, your address and education history, which takes like 40 minutes at least. You can spend that time way more effectively into that networking piece. And generally, from my experience, initially, I was super reluctant as well. But what I found is that people are fairly responsive, and they're mostly open to sharing their own experiences, because who doesn't like to talk about themselves? So yeah, that would be a strong point I would want to highlight for the participants. Hey, networking is important, and it is even more important in the current climate. And do not hesitate into reaching out to people.
Can I just add on to that a little bit, if that's okay? And I think that the strategy of reaching out to folks specifically in the CEMS community is really important. It's one that I've leveraged in the past. I think the one thing that you mentioned, Mr. Sim, that was really important is actually identifying why you want to connect with the person. So just like sending a request might not give you the same return as saying like, hey, I saw in your profile that you've worked at this company and in this region, like being very specific about why you want to talk to that person over someone else. And then if you can't get a coffee chat, because sometimes people are super busy, if you have specific questions, putting them in writing so that someone can respond in writing to you. I know that I'm not always able to have every single coffee chat with folks, but I for sure corresponded via email and recently chatted with someone who had reached out over LinkedIn. We didn't have a coffee chat, but sent questions. And one of the recommendations I'd given was like, get involved in your CEMS community. And they have since become the rep in their country. And that's not something that they would have thought about otherwise. So you might get ideas or inspirations even just through writing correspondence. So that's a good backup.
Great, thank you very much. We're receiving tons of questions at the moment. If we are not able to answer all of them today, no worries. Keep sending your questions on the Q&A box, and we can also post afterwards in our social media the answers from our panelists. We have here 2 panelists that are actually currently located in the US. The US just got through an election period, and the US is also very special on terms of getting visas and getting actually a job permit. The interesting fact is that both of our panelists work for very different companies. So we have one of our corporate partners, Gardner, and Christina, who works for a major NGO, but both in New York. So one of the questions we wanted to ask you both today was, what is your perception on working in New York? Christina, from an NGO perspective, and Mustasim from one of major's advisory firms like Gardner. So Christina, let's start with you. How is the world of the NGOs, in particular the one that you're working at the moment, which is globally and very, very important? How is the job environment there? How is actually your company there? Have you liked it? And how it is to work for an NGO in New York City?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because sometimes the world of NGO, I think, is a little bit of a mystery to folks. I mean, working in New York is always a very special experience. I think it's a very high-paced city. You know, the idea of long hours is not, you know, foreign in New York City. There's been a lot of that. But there's a lot of energy also to kind of rally around. So it doesn't feel like you're the exception when you're working a million hours. Everyone kind of puts in the hours. In terms of where I work, I mean, it's probably one of the most international organizations in the entire world. So as a CEMSy, it's really nice to be around such a diverse group of people. I think that it's important at this moment in time as well for all teams to reflect in terms of the diversity and not just in terms of where people are hired from in terms of countries, but also in terms of background and experiences. And I know that's something that my team has reflected on and the organization as a whole is reflecting on. And I hope that all companies are doing that at this point in time. So that's been a really important of the last year, particularly. Obviously a strange time as well in terms of COVID and having moved completely remote. So being an international organization that works in 190 countries, a lot of folks during this time have decided to spend some time back home since we are all working remote. So I've come back to Canada for a while. If I don't need to be in New York because all my teammates are now remote anyhow, I'm going to see them either through a screen in Canada or a screen in New York. It makes no difference. That's really shifted the way that we worked. And I think it's also proven that as a large international organization, you know, we're able to be efficient working online as well. And so we're starting to see some shifts in terms of how we work and going fully remote. And I think it will be interesting over the coming years to see how that works as well as an organization.
Thank you. Montesa, do you agree? Do you relate with anything that Christina just mentioned? Is it any different in the corporate world in New York City?
I mean, it's pretty similar. So like the two things, the energy of the city like really makes you want to push yourself, and which is a good thing. And secondly, the diversity is really one of the core essential qualities of the city, right? So for instance, if there is so for me, I have a lot of interest in global affairs. So for instance, recently there was an explosion in Lebanon. So if I want to find someone to get a local perspective out of it, there are always impressive people from all around the world that you can speak with and gain those local perspectives out of them. So that is something that I found in New York City is one of the essential qualities. That's why like it's called like the hot pot of the world and everything, which is to an extent true. You get like diverse people from all over the world who are really, really impressive.
Thank you. And let's just take a shift and move to South America, because Greta, you have worked in also hotspots in South America, Sao Paulo and Santiago. You worked for both offices. We have actually two CEMS schools in these countries. What were the major differences among each other? Is the one of them that you like the most? Have you considered, for example, as you work in Bain, shifting to Colombia or to Argentina or to any other country in South America? And if not, why did you decide to stay in Chile?
Okay. So first of all, I think what's very important to know, Bain is a South America office. So it's not just Chile or just Colombia or just Brazil or just Argentina. We are one office and staffing is regional. So if for some reason they need my skills in Colombia, or I'm super interested to do a project in Buenos Aires, I can just ask for it and go there for a time, but keep my base in Chile, right? Which I think is really great, because by joining Bain Chile, or let's say Bain South America, I opened up 4 countries. And that's also why it was that easy to just stay half a year in Brazil. So it's not really that you need to take that tough decision, which country it should be, but it can rather be, okay, which country do I want to have my base in? And then you ask for projects in other countries in South America. So that's really one of the big benefits, I'd say. What's different between Chile and Brazil? I'd say, I mean, Brazil is a way bigger economy, right? And thus you have more industry diversity in a sense, or different industries. So, for example, private equity is not a huge thing in Chile yet. Maybe in a couple of years it is, but as of now, there's not a big private equity market. So if you are interested in private equity, Brazil is the place to go. Especially Bain has like this dedicated group there that does only private equity, and that's why I decided to go there, because I wanted to learn about this practice. And other than that, I think all offices are super cool. The difference is probably that the ones in Argentina, Colombia, and Chile are a bit smaller, while Brazil has around 500 consultants. So here in Chile, we should be around 60 or 70, and it's more of a family kind of feeling, right? You know everyone, we have barbecues every Friday, and these kind of things are a bit harder to realize in a 500 person office. So I think that was the major difference for me in terms of offices, but all of them have the same culture, all cool people, and yeah, slightly different industries depending on the country.
Luis, do you relate here? Do you see yourself shifting to Brazil, Google Brazil, or Google Chile, or Google Argentina? Is it more or less the same as what Greta mentioned, or is it a bit different in Google?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Yeah, for us actually at Google, we have two main offices as well. As Greta said, I think they have kind of the same structure. The main one is in Brazil and in Mexico City. So those are the main ones they have. And then they have local offices in each of the other countries like Argentina, Chile, Colombia, even Peru. We have offices. And for me, like, I chose to come to Colombia because I also was working with a larger region like Central America and the Caribbean. So it was for me like a big challenge to develop these countries and have this in mind. But it will be an option actually, and they are talking to me to move to Mexico. It can be, but not considered at this point.
Okay, so actually, just to jump off of that question, so you were mentioning that you've been working with, you said 15 different countries, right? So are you noticing that there's cultural differences and that you're having to really work through the different cultural differences amongst all the different countries, even just with the continental difference from where you're from and where you've worked? And I guess I'll extend that question to anybody that really applies to, because I think that that's a really interesting part, at least to the CEMS degree, is that you get to learn all about these different cultures, but to actually be immersed in them and to work across them. I'd be curious to hear more about your experience on that.
Yeah, I can talk a bit, and then I can pass it to someone else that wants. But then that was actually my first role at Google in Colombia. It was actually to take care of all these countries. Like there's like 5 in Central America, and then another 4 main ones in the Caribbean, and there are other more, but we didn't travel there. So I was going there pretty often. Like a week would be like going to Costa Rica for 3 days. Then on Wednesday we go to Guatemala, and then back to Panama, and then Dominican. So it was super different. Like even in our mind, in the European mind at least, like we saw like Central America, this will have like very similar culture, but actually was super different. And something that actually helps to navigate that is like get to know something about that culture, like something that the people there love, like can be like an artist, football player, can be anything. And then you just start the conversations like with something that they really like, and they see, oh, like this guy really cares about like our culture, and he got to know what is the thing here in this country. And the people are really, really friendly in all these countries. So at the end, like it's easier to get that relationship, as Greta mentioned, because everything is based on a relationship, and then later to start the business relationship as well. So that was something that I learned through through the experience.
And I'm actually curious to hear, Christina, in your line of work, you're having to work with people from all around the world in an incredibly multinational city, and you've had all this experience. Do you feel as though you've had to navigate a lot of the cross-cultural differences? What's your experience on that?
Yeah, there's definitely cross-cultural differences that we're constantly trying to, be aware of and adapt to, I think is important. The other layer in that, in such a large organization and working across so many countries and with partner organizations as well, is also being aware of structures and processes that maybe don't exist in, for example, the startup world. It's a very different, there's more layers. It's like an onion that you're peeling back constantly and trying to figure out how to navigate that. So I would say kind of managing through cross-cultural communication, but also then within a large organization and being super specific around which partners we're working with. So working with a partner in Sierra Leone might be a little different than working with a partner in Colombia, and recognizing the local context of also what's going on in each country that we're working with, I think is really important as we're having those conversations. International news has never been more important to me. Staying up to date, that also has an impact, for example, on colleagues, and as world events are happening, being cognizant that those might be having an impact on colleagues from different regions. And that can change super quickly, right? Like between now and noon, something could happen. And so it's really important to stay abreast on those, that we can also be sensitive and support colleagues that might be in these ever-changing situations. So yeah, definitely something that we're constantly trying to be cognizant and adapting to.
Great. And how it is blockchain within an NGO? Because I think we're receiving a lot of questions from the attendees. How did you ended up in this part of the organization? And if you decided to be there, also why?
Yeah, so I work within an innovation team, and working in a large organization that's over 70 years old that really focuses on supporting vulnerable populations, particularly, you could imagine that they're fairly risk averse, and for good reason. We're dealing with vulnerable populations. But at the same time, the organization realizes that there are these technologies that are coming up that are going to have an impact on the way that we can deliver services to people in all of these countries. And so the innovation team is meant to prepare the organization for possible futures. And so, for example, we have a drones team that have done vaccine delivery via drone, or they do emergency response in landslides. We have a machine learning team that's helping us map schools in countries so that we know how to deliver education, or we know where information is spreading via connectivity of schools, for example. With blockchain specifically, I joined about 2 years ago, and there was the idea of, could we use cryptocurrency as a way to move value between countries? And I think that's interesting when we think of it from a CEMS perspective as well. The difficulties that I've had changing countries and having to move funds from one country to another, and it taking several days or weeks for my funds to arrive, cryptocurrency provides an alternative for that. And so through our venture fund that I mentioned, we are the first entity within the United Nations to make payments in cryptocurrency. And we've made in the last year 12 investments to companies in 8 different countries. Those payments cost under $1 usually, and take under a few minutes for the payment to go through. And we're able to transparently track that from end to end. So donations coming in, people can see how much our organization is holding at any time, and they can see what companies we've made investments to and if they've spent that crypto. So that's just one application of how we're using blockchain and cryptocurrency. There's obviously just blockchain as a database, which we've been working with our office in Kazakhstan to make vendor payment and management more transparent using a public record like a blockchain. So, yeah.
Wow, insane. We're deep diving into the last minutes of our panel. And so now we will answer quick questions that we are receiving. So quick question, Greta, do you see yourself living and moving back to Europe?
Question. I think actually I will be moving back to Europe next year because I'm doing an MBA at INSEAD. So I will spend half a year in Singapore and half a year in Europe. So at least I will be half a year back in Europe. Afterwards, I'm planning to go back to South America, and have not yet figured whether that will be the end goal or whether I'll keep moving on afterwards. But as of now, that's the plan.
Thank you. Mustasim, what was an unexpected challenge that you faced when you moved to the Americas or to New York or to the US?
I mean, nothing much, to be honest. I only felt that their expectation of the working hours that you're working is a lot, even though you completed your work before. So that really helps you understand or develop a more qualitative emotional intelligence into seeing how people work, how they differ from different cultures, how to impress them. And apart from that, like I won't say anything much. Even if the expectation for the work is higher, it really like pushes yourself into developing you both personally and professionally. And here I felt that there is a lot of importance laid into professional or leadership development. So people keep on reading new things, especially in Gartner. I felt like leadership qualities, these are the best tactics, different books. So there's a lot of focus into how you should keep on learning or lifelong learning as you go along. The masters, it's not the end.
Great, thank you. And Luis, we already know you moved within Google to South America. When you applied for the transfer, and this is also a question we're receiving from the public, do you apply for the same position that you had in your in Dublin, or do you apply simply for the transfer and then you get the position? How at least within Google, because obviously you can only speak for Google, but how was it, the entire process of moving?
Super.
From the operative part? Yeah.
Super, Dan. Yeah, I'm talking about the experience at Google, but I believe like mainly like all of the international operations works very similar. There's like literally like the career website. There's one internal as well, so you can just apply to any role. Like literally, you can apply to any role that's opened. So in my case, it was actually a completely changed because I was managing like small businesses in Europe, and then I moved to manage the large businesses and agencies in Colombia. So it was actually something completely different from like the business I had before. And in my case, you have to do that. You have to do a process, a whole interview process. In my case, was 5 interviews with people from all over Latin America, from Miami till Argentina to get a role. And then once they accept you in that role, they do the transfer to the country. So it's first the role, then later the transfer.
And building upon that, what was the most difficult part? If you have to just pick one, where should students pay the most attention to or prepare the most when for transfer?
For me, the main disadvantage I had to move to Latin America is that I didn't have any experience in the market. So the people that I was interviewing with, like they were like asking me like local questions or like about the economic or social situation. And I mean, you can read a lot, but you are not in those countries, so you don't feel that sense. So for me, that was the most difficult part to get the experience. But I compensated that with the knowledge that I had from Europe. So as I was working a lot in e-commerce and retail, I had that experience that was super valuable for the development of Latin America. So that's something that I was taking advantage of.
So you would really suggest and recommend all students that would be interested in apply for a position in Americas to really research about the market, about the how the culture, how it works there, and so on.
Definitely, yeah, that's something super important if you want to move to these countries, because in that you are in disadvantage compared to the locals, but then you bring the knowledge or like something different that you can add value to the market or to the country.
Thank you.
Right, Greta, a question for you. So what would you say is the most exciting part of your current job?
I think it's the opportunities, and I feel there are more than in Europe, because like right when I joined, I think after 4 or 5 months, I had my first presentation in front of 20, 30 people, in front of the CEO, being really able to present to high-level executives and making your very young voice heard very early in your career. So I think that's really great. And on the other hand, it's like you're a part of building an office, right? Here when I joined, I think we were around 30 consultants. Now we are 60 or 70. So we almost doubled in 2 years I was here. And I was able to really help grow some initiatives like Women at Bain, or I'm working for Enseña Chile, which is a basically like Teach for America. It's an organization that helps improve education in Chile. So you can really help develop different parts of the office, and this is great. You almost feel like a consultant entrepreneur.
That is extremely exciting, honestly. I think, Ms. Dasim, you said you have one little thing that you wanted to address regarding visa permits, and then I think we're going to wrap up quickly. So go ahead, Ms. Dasim.
Yeah, I do see a couple of questions coming in regarding the US work permits. So in order to work in the US, there are like 3 pathways which are more commonly used. The first one is an internship pathway, which is a J1 visa. The second is an L1, which is an internal transfer from a company's office outside of the US into the US. And the third being an H1B, which is when you complete a master's in the US, then you get a work permit afterwards. So all 3 of them, in case you're not wanting to do another master's, just omit that. So for the L1 visa, where you have to find a job in any other office and then request a transfer, and also for the J1 visa, where you already are using your current qualifications and applying directly to the US, both of them you do need to network a lot. I cannot stop emphasizing on that. So in the US currently, it might be a little tough, but in case you're planning on moving into the North American region, there's some slight context I can provide about Canada as well, if you're wanting to move into this continent. So one thing that I would urge you people to do is that they have this immigration or permanent residency program in Canada called Express Entry. And since most of you would soon be done with your master's, and if you have a couple of years of work experience, do try and check if you are eligible for that or not. In case you are eligible, the process is not very lengthy. It takes like 6 to 8 months. And then you get like a permanent residence, which also comes with a work permit and all of those permits that are necessary to work in Canada. So for the US, 3 pathways, networking. Canada, do also review the permanent residency pathway there.
And I'll add one more visa type to that, which would be the G4 visa. If you apply to any United Nations position, that is the type of visa that would also be provided, which would allow you to live in the US if that's where the position is based. So.
Thank you so much. I think those tips are the ones that we need, right? All the students are now taking the notes and everything. So really thank you for those tips as well. As we start to wrap up, if you have to define your country where you're currently based, and now Christina, maybe you can answer as well for Canada. You're currently in Canada. If you have to define your country in only one word, how would it be? So who wants to start? Or okay, 2 words, okay, but really, really short. How would you define Canada, the US, Chile? You can even answer for Brazil, Greta, if you want, and Colombia, Luis. Difficult question, but let's give it a shot. Who wants to start?
I mean, I can go first. I can break the barriers. So for me, it has to be development. It could either be personal and or professional development, which is something I've seen being a lot of focus here, especially in the New York City. And I'm sure it would be for many of the other cosmopolitan or metropolitan areas in the world, where you have a lot of people coming in from different countries, striving for the best positions, which actually makes you push yourself even farther in like professionally and both personally developing yourself.
So I'll build on that. The word that came to mind for me is opportunity, both for New York and for Canada as well. You'll notice that even if you start one thing in New York or in Canada, there's probably 5 other opportunities that will follow. And so it's all about figuring out which opportunities you want to pursue. There's a lot of them. So being focused.
I can go next. For Colombia, I would say it's adventure and fun, both in personal life and professional life. You have a lot of adventures, and you talk to a lot of people, different clients. You get to know a lot of how the culture works. And so I think it's something super interesting to live in a developing country for a while and develop your skills. And taking this point, because I know a lot of the students might be applying, looking for opportunities, And actually, like a lot of large companies are expanding to Latin America, like Amazon. There's like a local delivery company called Rappi. There's a lot of different companies, so you can even contact me directly if you want to see opportunities locally in the country.
Perfect. So I think I'll go last. For me, it's 2 words. One would be, I think, nature, and the other one, flexibility. In terms of nature, you can, I think, see a bit in my bag. Chile has a lot to offer in terms of nature. So you also have lots of adventures you can go on during weekends. It's a super long country. So you have, I think, 5 climate zones, and really from skiing over beaches, everything that you could wish for possibly. And then flexibility, because for me, a German living in Chile, Chileans are flexible. So you definitely need to adapt and come with a certain amount of flexibility. But being able to bring that flexibility also opens up a lot of possibilities and opportunities.
Amazing. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists, Greta, Montesa, Luis, Christina, Daniel. It was really honestly great. And I think everybody's learned a lot of information from you guys. And I think that at least it got me pretty excited about the fact that we can really reach out to anybody wherever in the world, and we can learn so many really great things. So thank you so much. Okay, then I suppose that we're gonna have to say our parting goodbyes. Thank you to all the participants that joined today. We will hopefully be showing a video later on YouTube. So hopefully we can kind of have access to this later on and figure out all the nitty-gritty details of that we read or heard today. Okay, cheers. Well, big thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks a lot to you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brea. Thanks, Dan. Ciao, ciao.
Take care and stay safe.